in America. And I want to say I'm delighted to be here. I want to explore the idea of entreprenology. It's quite a mouthful to say, and it's in its exploration of entrepreneurship at a different level. So I would love to share my slides with you, which are very pictorial, and I will invite you to make some notes and ask some questions later. Is that okay, David?
That is okay with us.
Good. And where you see the view at the top of your screen, you might want to put that onto the speaker's, so that you can see the big screen. But let me just put my slides on and get this going. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So here we are. And I want to throw some very different kind of ideas out to all of you today. I am British. I live in America. I have lived in Malaysia. I work across the globe. And I'm very excited to share with you these ideas for education for visionary change makers. And I've talked to David a lot about this, and I see David as a change maker. He makes things happen. And I'm sure all of you who follow him also make things happen. And we have a world today which needs us all to make things different. But it's not going to be that all of us are entrepreneurs. We don't all have to be entreprenologists. We don't all have to be change makers, but to be aware that there is possibility out there. And that to start with, what I'm going to present to you is beyond tradition. So I'm going to break a few rules, so to speak, because the great change makers of the world, the visionaries of the world, they actually make things happen differently. And I want you to think about things that have changed in your own lifetime, which you would never have expected. Even the fact that we all have these mobile telephones, we have computers, we have things that maybe some of us just take for granted. So who am I and why am I an entreprenologist? I'm going to explain what that means, who I am, and maybe some different ways of sparking some different kind of energy in you. And I want you to really think about your imagination and doing things beyond tradition. So here's me. This was me on a stage in 2017, but I started my own enterprise in 1999, Corporate Heart International. I started in England. As I say, in 1999, I'd actually been an entrepreneur for 10 years before that, but I started that and it was my passion. And I often speak to large audiences. My business as a behavioral change maker is helping men and women to understand each other. I lived in Malaysia for 4 years and worked with many, many mixed audiences there. Of course, with COVID, I got into Zooming. So I started working across the world with mixed audiences from different countries. And I studied how men and women think differently about the world. So that's my own enterprise. In that time, I have done research. I have spent a lot of money developing my products, and I've designed my own products, which you can see here on the screen. So the reason I'm an entrepreneur is that I run my own business, but more than that, being more than a business owner is what an entrepreneur, an entreprenologist is about. So it's about looking beyond tradition. Yes, I did go to university way back when, a long time ago in the late 60s. And I went because I thought that's something I should do. I did sociology and statistics. I wouldn't say that I enjoyed all the study, but it was something that we do. We think that school and university and college is the only way to go forward. And it is important for certain people who need an education. We all need some education. But what I'm going to explore today is the education that doesn't come from schools. It doesn't come from colleges. It comes from you're able to think of ideas and put them into practice. There's something like 582 million entrepreneurs in the world today. And there's a lot of attention on that market because we are the change makers. So if you look at these steps, what are the steps that we go through? What made me do what I have done in the last 30 years? When I set up Corporate Heart, I just knew that I had a passion. I knew that I had something that was about me, but I wanted to serve others. I wanted to make a difference in the world. So the first thing I want you to think about is, what is your belief in yourself? What is your passion? What is your vision? And the me in that cycle is what we need to pay attention to. Because yes, once we know the me who's an entrepreneur, we can impact other people. The you and me is all the relationships that you create, not only in your business, in your life, but the relationships you build in your business become your customers. And the we is the world that you live in. So whether you're in Ghana or other parts of the world, whether I'm in England or America, we build our community, we build our customer base, and we build our employees. So entreprenology for us, the education for change makers, is creating the employers of the future. And this is a very important first point, is we do educate employees, but if we employ people to be employers, what is the great advantage to the world? That they create job spaces for other people. And hopefully they create them in the way that becomes very life enhancing and community enhancing. And I know that, David, you have a wonderful group of people around you and a tribe that follow you. This is your people. But what are the steps? So the first thing is having a vision. If we're going to be visionary change makers, it's having a vision. Now that might be specific, or it might be a big vision that you want to make the world a better place. But it isn't just that you want to go and get a job. So it's different between wanting to just get a job and wanting to change the world. And what's interesting is that with this 582 million entrepreneurs in the world, creating job spaces for other people, this is how we generate energy. So it comes from the vision. The next thing is a belief. We need belief in ourselves and a belief in what we're going to do. It's not going to work if we don't believe in ourselves. Now, you might buy a franchise and make that your business. You might think of something from scratch. Whatever it is, you need to have a self-belief and belief that you can do it. At a sense of purpose. What is your purpose? An entrepreneur is different to a business owner who just wants to run something, put the money in the till, spend it, and that's it. So having a purpose over and above just making money is a purpose to make things different and better. And that comes from within you. That's the me. Now, we need an idea. We may have lots of energy and want to change the world, but we want to have a specific idea, but often comes from our purpose. And I'm going to show you a very fascinating story on that. And my purpose was that I wanted to make the workplace a better and happier and healthier place. And I studied people and behavior, and I became a communication conversation specialist. So my idea was, how do I help men and women, leaders and followers, to understand each other better? Because as we know, there's quite a lot of arguments between men and women. So my idea was that I wanted to use what I had, which was a very logical, mathematical mind, to create a map and create archetypes. So that's what I did. That's what I do. I create a map. Now, somebody else might create a machine, might create a teaching academy. So whatever your idea is, we need to have passion. And the purpose and the passion is what drives that cycle. So what you see there, the me, the you and me, we, this is your internal driver. This is what makes you get up in the morning. And it also helps you to get over the days which are not so good, the days when something goes wrong, when you seem to be failing. Well, you're not, because you get up. And an entrepreneur, an entreprenologist, will keep on getting up. The most famous entreprenologists in the world, which we will explore, have very often lost money and failed and got up again and started again and are always looking at the bigger picture. And so value is what comes from all of this. So we create value, which is in our financial value of what we do in business, for sure. But the value is also your value in your customer base. Are your customers loyal to you? Are your employees loyal to you? Is there value for you personally, not just in your bank accounts? Is there value in how you feel when you get up every morning? And what's interesting about all these steps is that you cannot teach any of these steps. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's she talking about? We're talking about education. There is one kind of education which is about teaching knowledge. And there's another type of education which is providing the environment so that you can express the knowledge that you've learned, whether that's in a classroom or studying books. However you gained the knowledge, it's absolutely no use unless you put it into experience. And these things are not teachable. These are the unteachables. And we're going to look a lot at the unteachables. So remember, I said this is going beyond tradition. So what we say in educating visionary change makers in our university, the International University of Entreprenology, we actually combine knowledge, all that stuff you get into your head, all the books that you read, all the things that your teachers teach you, preach you, but your experience is what you do with it. And the most important thing is your imagination. You know, what persuaded Steve Jobs to create an Apple computer that has now changed the way we do things in the world? There's lots of people who have made a difference in the world of things that we never thought were possible. So remember that knowledge, what you know, what you learn at school, and experience, what you do with it, and how you remember the experiences, including the not so good experiences that things go wrong. And how do you use your imagination? Now, I love quotes. I've got a lot of these in my presentation, and I hope you like them, because if we go beyond tradition, then we have to use our imagination. And this famous man, Albert Einstein, said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, whereas imagination encircles the world. I really want you to sit with that and think about that as we go forward. Now, the other thing about being a visionary and a change maker and an entreprenologist is you have to be a little bit crazy. So I hope you're up for that, because people are going to say to you, no, you can't do that. Now, a great entreprenologist of our time, sadly passed, Steve Jobs, he said the ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So not all of you will want to change the world in the same way as Steve Jobs, but if we have that passion to look forward rather than past, if we respect the notion of humanity and our world is in our ownership, then it's time to be a little bit crazy. So the International University of Entreprenology is in a very exciting launch stage. And I might say it's odd because it's actually 50 years old. That's right, 1972 was when our founder set this up. And he said that it's a destination for change makers who like a challenge, bringing knowledge, experience, and imagination together. And I will show you a little bit about our founder later on. But I want you to understand that an entreprenologist is amongst you. You're all seeing these around you, across Africa, across India, across Asia, across every country, across America, across Europe, across England. But a lot of us are struggling a bit. But when we get down to it, actually, there are people everywhere running businesses in all sorts of ways. And what's interesting is often they are individuals or their families or their teams. And I was just searching on the internet and looking for information. We're very, very lucky now to have information at our fingertips, literally, through our mobiles, through our computers. We can find out anything. So I want you to think about the energy that comes in when you look at entrepreneurs. Now, I don't know who these people are, but I'm sure that they are passionate about what they do. You can see it in their faces. They're doing something because they want to do it. They're not just doing a job. And what's interesting when you study the number of entrepreneurs in the world, Apparently Angola is noted to being one of the highest percentage of entrepreneurs in an A1 country. But it's because often when there are less jobs available, then entrepreneurs bubble up. They stick their head up and go, yes, I can do something. Now, we believe in our study that you can't make an entrepreneur, that those of you who feel that I'm speaking to you because you understand it, that there's something in you that wants to do something more, that's a natural thing that's there. But it's okay not to be that, because if you want to work for somebody who's an entrepreneur, that's equally exciting. So we want to embrace everybody. But we do know about the big change makers, and I would say that Steve Jobs is a big change maker. He created something that wasn't there before, which now virtually is everywhere. Richard Branson is one of my British role models, because he, again, a bit crazy. Apparently he was standing in a queue to go on holiday with his wife on an aeroplane that didn't take off. And he thought, what if I asked everybody what they would pay for a flight, and I'll go and buy or hire an aircraft and fly them there. That's the kind of mindset of an entreprenologist. Elon Musk is going to take us to Mars. So definitely, creating a AI-powered car manufacturing. These are people who we see, and we see them maybe too far away from us, but they all started from scratch. They all started from the garage. And Richard Branson, for certain, who's dyslexic, never went to college. Steve Jobs dropped out of college because he wanted to do something different. I think Elon Musk went to university, but actually he disregarded it once he got into his field. So it's okay. And I want to introduce you to Kevin Doe. Now, you don't know this young man, but I found him on the internet. He started at the age of 10. He was in Sierra Leone. He started at the age of 10, and he decided that he wanted to solve the intermittent electricity supply in his village. And I don't know how he did it, but he managed to make this self-generating battery. He put it on the internet when he was 13. He made a YouTube video. It went viral. He was picked up by MIT, which is Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And they have put him on a bigger platform. And now he is a very successful businessman. He's only age 26. And I want to share with you what he said. He said, creativity is universal and can be found in places when one does not expect to find it. Perseverance and passion are essential to nurturing that creative ability. So my view to all of us is that if Kevin Doe can do it, we can all do it. And one of my passions is to understand how we create a better future, and especially with women. I study women across the world, and women are incredibly amazing entrepreneurs. And all of you men are too, so I'm not saying not. But women are the lesser number of entrepreneurs. There's something like 12.5 million businesses, women-owned businesses in the world. That's not a lot, but there are 252 million women entrepreneurs. So it means a lot of women are actually in business for themselves. And they are the fastest growing. So they're not the greatest number, but they are the fastest growing. So if the best way to predict our future is to create it, I want to test you as to how you think you would create a different society around you, because women often face very amazing funding difficulties and support, more so than men. It's just a thought. So as we go on, I want to just share some other entreprenology stories and give you some thoughts, which I'd like you to make a note of, and we can discuss these at the end. So often, hello? So often entreprenology stories are rags to riches. Yeah. And what's interesting is that, do you all know this character? I'm sure you probably do. He started his business when he was in his 60s. So there's Kevin Doe starting when he's 10, and here's Colonel Sanders started when he is 60 something. So I want you to think about what's the potential times opportunity. Now we live in a very uncertain world, so sometimes we think that, oh, it's too difficult, it's too hard. But actually there's a lot of, I can hear something dinging. You hear that, David? So what I want you to think about is, what is the opportunity around you? Hi there. Is there somebody who's not on mute? Okay.
Yes, I'm working on it, Doc. I just don't know how. I try everything possible to mute him, but I'm working on that.
Okay, thank you, David. So if you think about it, everybody, what is the opportunity that's around you? And it's really important, because when you look at Colonel Sanders, he was an employee for a long, long time. And when he retired was when he bought a service station, I think, somewhere, but he started mixing his own sauce together. And that was what made his business so successful. There's now 152 or something million KFCs around the world. And I know there are some across Africa and almost every country of the world. How did that happen? Because you might have said, well, it's not going to happen. So uncertainty is what we're facing at the moment. And this is actually a blank canvas for an entreprenologist. So think about Kevin Doe. He was in a very uncertain place. His village was without electricity. He wanted to change that. It became a canvas for him to do something different. So I want you to really think about what is possible outside of what the norm is, beyond tradition. Because I'm going to get to in a minute the essence of what we do in our education. Change is constant everywhere. And that's another element that the entreprenologist really copes with well. Is it in a way we love change because it's infinite. There's an infinite possibility when you look at change as constant. There's always something that else we can do today. And let's say one of the things about known entrepreneurs and entreprenologists is that they have failed in their lives and they got up again. They failed and they got up. I remember meeting an amazing gentleman in Malaysia who was 80 and he had failed three times in his life, major. And the last time had been when he was 60, and he picked himself up again and he started making a fortune and became a multimillionaire again. So it is a rags to riches story, but it's not focused on the money. It's focused on the purpose and passion and all those steps that I showed you. So the last thing is, fear is an option. So what do I mean by that? Fear grabs us when we're in fear, and we can all be in very awful situations occasionally. And obviously natural disasters can turn up, tragedy, all sorts of things. How we cope with those things is where we understand that fear needs to be recognized. It is an option to choose to overcome fear, the fear of failure, the fear of grief, the fear of violence, the fear of all sorts of things that we face in the world, but also the fear of not trying something new and outrageous. Now, again, I hope most of you will have read the history of Henry Ford, a long time ago, who created the motor car. And he says here, thinking is the hardest work there is, which is the reason so few engage in it. Makes us think, doesn't it? And one of the other things he said was, when I was making the motor car, there were a lot of people trying to make the horse go faster. So did we need the motor car over the horse? Do we now need electric cars? Do we now need, of course, his great invention was the production line, which engaged thousands and thousands of people. Now we have production lines run by AI machines. So he maybe could never have imagined what was happening in the future. So again, imagination is a really, really key part of this. So I hope you're getting the idea that this is a very different way of educating. This is not sitting you in a classroom. You've done that, no doubt. You may not have done, but you've learned something either by listening to your elders, going to school, whatever it is, in our church communities. But what is the purpose of your life? What is the passion and the if you like, the creed? And I know we understand that the Lord guides us as well. I want to share some statements that our founder put into our university. And when I first came across this and realized I was an entreprenologist, I really loved these, but you won't necessarily resonate with all of them. So I want you to note the ones that you resonate with. So if you're an entreprenologist, you choose to be uncommon. You choose to be different. It's okay to be different and to not worry about what other people think about you. It is my right to be creative and innovative. It's within me. Now, I believe we all have an innovative natural gift, whether it's being good at maths or languages or cooking or sewing or just talking to people. Some of you might be more introvert, some more extrovert, but there's something in you that is creative and innovative. And the next one is, I seek and embrace opportunity rather than settle for security. We all want security, but the entrepreneur goes beyond security. They do it with care of other people, but they risk to dream and they act to build. So if you resonate with that one, how about resonating with this one? If it is my lot to fail, I shall rise again and again until I know the exhilaration of success. Being an entrepreneur can be one of the most frustrating and challenging ways to be in the world today, but the exhilaration of success is just wonderful. So I'm sure that you know that feeling, and you will overcome all obstacles on the road leading ultimately to success. I prefer the challenge of life to the routine of existence. Now, I'm not decrying routine. We do need to routine. We need to learn business skills and some technical stuff, but we need to get out of our own way and choose the anticipation of fulfillment to the predictability of conformity. Remember what I said, this education is beyond tradition. And there's nothing wrong with tradition. It's just that we need both. We need to go beyond tradition and infinite in our imagination and understand the structure of life. So I embrace the life I feel within me here and now. And that, I'm sure, is what the Lord is saying to us as well, is that we are life itself. I welcome the challenge of change and reject the outcome of complacency. I shall maintain my dignity despite all challenges. So there's a lot about your heritage, to stand unafraid, to think and act responsibly. It's my birthright to enjoy the rewards of honest effort. And I have the ability to recognize the compassion to care and the wisdom to act appropriately for the benefit of the whole, as I believe and embrace. Now, when I came across these statements from my founder, who is Professor Dr. James Oms, who is my husband's father, and I met him before he passed away in 2014, and he was an incredibly amazing entrepreneur and businessman, but he had this real belief that in order to be absolutely at the top of the game, you had to have this creed. And you won't resonate with all of these, but think about which ones you resonate. And when you look at the slides later, there might be 3 or 4 that really resonate for you. Pull them out and really sense what that means to you. I actually love the top 3 because I do want to be different. I do want to make a difference in the world and to help men and women to understand each other so that as we go forward, we stop all the arguments and the violence in the world that is destroying us. So what is our PhD about? And I said it's non-traditional. So I want to explain that we say this is called a professional higher doctorate. So our professional higher doctorate is different to a traditional PhD. So we're going beyond traditional. So we use the capitals PhD as opposed to P small hd. And I explain the difference. The difference is that your PhD, which is a philosophy, a doctorate of philosophy, is your expertise in your subject area. So you might be a dentist or a lawyer or construction work, whatever your expert is. So my expertise is what I call conversational gender dynamics intelligence. That's my expertise. But my professional higher doctorate, which is in the art of entreprenology, this art of seeking beyond, of being beyond the norm, that is what we educate people in. And we don't sit you in a classroom, though there is some essence to what you need to do, but this is your life success credential. So this is you taking your knowledge, your experience, and your imagination, and actually drawing this up over a career assessment profile. So our successful PhDs, they write their life story according to some guidelines. They do it as a living dissertation in order to display that to the world about the amazing life that you have led. Presenting your accomplishments to the world, and there is essential reading. Obviously, there's original lecture notes from our founder, and there's a lot of guidelines and principles which I'm going to share some of with you. But the art of the PhD is you. So it's understanding value creation and principles, which I will share with you on the next slide. But this doctorate is a very special one because you don't have to go into a mausoleum of a university for 6 to 7 years and study theoretical books. And it'll cost you a lot more than our PhD. Our PhD is you displaying your living dissertation to the world. And as we expand the legacy which my father-in-law gave me, we have all of you who become our PhDs are then our adjunct faculty. So we educate, we don't teach. We enable people to be in an environment where they can learn, unlearn, relearn. They can change the way the world is. We can ask questions about that then. So once you do your PhD with us, you become a member of the faculty of the world. And that's my dream, is to take my father-in-law's legacy and expand it. He was so passionate about this, and I will share a little bit about his story in a moment. So an entrepreneur isn't someone who just runs a business. It's someone who makes things happen. And this is where the difference is between, if you like, an entrepreneur for me and an entreprenologist, that we're looking at principles. And I want you to understand that a lot of this is unteachables. So again, I want you to think about how these impact your business and your life. So the first principle that we look at is possibilities. Now there is lots and lots of possibilities. So as an entrepreneur, entreprenologist, you are an opportunity seeker, not a problem solver. So I'll say that again, a business person is usually a problem solver, but an entreprenologist is an opportunity seeker, where they look at possibilities and they take a dream into reality. Creativity is a must, you know, and as I said earlier, we've all got natural creativity. So we can't teach creativity. We can hone it, we can put it in the right environment. But it's the process of visualizing, developing a product or service that did not exist prior to you having conceived it. Using your imagination, we mentioned before, it allows you freedom. Your imagination is limitless. So it's infinite. It's not finite. And I think our current education across the world has limited the imagination of kids. That's my view. And I know that is true in the UK, my country, and in America. Motivation is that mechanism that alerts you to the fact that something is worth doing, and you might just be the right person to do it. But you can't teach motivation. You can create an environment in which people feel motivated. So when you actually start your business and you include other people, you need to learn tricks and techniques for how to engage people, for sure. But an entreprenologist is obviously independence-minded. You've got to know that you've got that belief and you can make things happen on your own. And whatever comes along and hits you downside, you can get up again. I love this one. This is common sense. It's that interpersonal guide that says, look both ways when you're crossing the road. But it's something that keeps you safe and aware when you're in the middle of a creativeness. Perspective is the point of view that you have through your own unique accrual of knowledge and experience. And then when you converse with other people, you can offer advice and support and listening. An entreprenologist is somebody who definitely sees their place in the world giving back, as well as making money and making job spaces and engaging a large workforce and a consumer base. But the idea of sharing ideas rather than deciding that I'm right, you're wrong, is not the entreprenologist. And this is a lovely one, simplicity. Defining and working what fundamentals you're going to work with. Often we get so complex. We want to eliminate needless complexity. Somebody said the other day to me, there's a way of doing complexity in a not complicated way. There you are, there's an interesting challenge. And observation is a very, very important principle for us. The art of being wholly aware that that which exists within your immediate sphere of life and influence. So often we don't look around us and see the obvious. Have you ever had that when you've been stressed and you've just focused on the wrong things and you suddenly look around and think, oh my God, I didn't notice that was there, because we've been so busy being stressed, we haven't taken the time out. So this principle is very much about taking time out and stepping back. Maybe like Kevin Doe when he was 10, he'd looking around him, he was picking up scrap metal, he was putting it together. It took him 3 years before he made what he wanted to make. But that's about observing what's around. And this one is essential, perseverance. If you're an entrepreneur, an entreprenologist, you have to know that you can get up 9 times, 10 times, 11 times, however many times you get knocked down, you can get up again. So when we're educating and we're looking at this, entrepreneurs always actually search for change and respond to it and exploit it as an opportunity. So remember, this is about being an opportunity seeker, not a problem solver. So your vision is your opportunity to resolve something that impacts your world. So like Kevin Doe, when he wanted to change his village's capacity to have electricity, my passion to make sure that we can get harmony between men and women worldwide and what impact that will make. I've talked to David about his passion to make a difference in the education world as well as the business world. Think about what your opportunity is, and then remember to bring the right team together. And remember, as an entreprenologist, you're an employer. So our education is for employers as opposed to employees. Although we will be putting in place a Masters of Entreprenology, which will help employees to lift their energy to the level of employer. But engage your knowledge, experience, and imagination with the people around you. People like to work for people like entreprenologists because they have an energy. And if any of you have come across a man called Simon Sinek, I would look him up. Simon Sinek says, in the infinite mindset of the entreprenologist is important, but we need finite people around us to do the nuts and bolts to make sure that the systems work. So why are visionaries not traditional? I hope you get this idea now, but we actually were founded by a man who was a very great visionary. I'm not expecting you to read all that, but he, in 1972, when he gave this amazing first lecture on entreprenology, having been an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur before he went into academia, and this was back in the 60s. So he was University of Hawaii Professor of Business Studies in 1965 to 2005. But this event was in 1972. And the newspaper in Hawaii said, this is a new type of school that will teach success. Now, the truth is you can't teach success. You can only create the environment in which it occurs. Because as he said, and he was an amazing man, he said some things are unteachable. And this is what our schooling and education have not quite grasped yet. But what was important was that he taught us how to do things differently. And one of the things he shared, and I want to share with you, because this is really important, the PhD, which is an academic study of your expertise and may take you 5 to 8 years and give you your PhD, your doctorate, but it won't necessarily put you into the real world. He wanted to have a PhD, capital professional higher doctorate, because he saw it as a working model. And when he gave a lecture to these very, very important businessmen in Taiwan in 1972, he was actually looking, they were all businessmen in corporates, big, big corporates, very, very successful. He wanted them to understand there were different levels of management. For those of you who are in a management position, what the first level is technical, doing what we do. We have to get that done. There has to be that level of management. The operational is how are we doing? Institutional, i.e. the whole corporation, is what are we doing? Top management. But he said there's a fourth one, and this is the key. The first, the top level entrepreneurial is what should we be doing? So this is a very important point. It's not whether we get things done right. It's are we doing the right things? And actually this followed what you might know as the artisan guild, that you start as an apprentice, you go on to be a tradesman, you then become a journeyman, which is pretty much an expert, pretty much the traditional PhD. But when you're a master, you're the top. You're a professional higher doctorate of whatever you are expert in, and in business and success. In fact, you become a successful person, not by what you've learned, but by what you have achieved. Just to share with you that we do have many subjects in our university. We at the master's level and at the basic level, and we do actually run educational entreprenology programs for kids of 10 onwards in a school in Malaysia. We're very excited about the development of children understanding these. So this is just an example of some of the subjects. And the core is the principles that I've shared with you and my work on gender dynamics intelligence, because understanding people is absolutely critical. So I'm coming to the end of my presentation, and I've actually got some homework for you. I was studying just across Africa out of interest because David's in Ghana, and just looking at the up and coming talent that there is. We've got everything at our fingertips. So I want you to go and study these people, find out a bit more about them. What's going on in your land? Where are the Kevin Does of this world? Who is making a difference? Who is making a change? And I hope you've understood that this is very much about doing what you do best. And I love Richard Branson. He's a favorite of mine because he's a bit of a rebel and a very visionary change maker. And he's dyslexic, as I am. So I really admire him. And he says, if you aren't making a difference in other people's lives, you shouldn't be in business. It's that simple. And I do believe that. And I hope some of you may think about the things that I've shared and maybe even come and do your PhD with us and be part of this rippling of expertise and success and opportunity seeking in the world that so desperately needs it. We do have a new website, and my request to you all is to just take a look at it, sign in, and at least we can send you out our newsletter and you'll see what we're progressing. And it is global. We have many PhDs in Malaysia and in different parts of the world, in the US, UK, in Asia, Africa. We don't have as many in Africa, so I would really love David for sure to come on board, which I know you're keen. And I'd like to just introduce you to my husband here, who is the current president of the International University of Entreprenology and is the son of the founder and myself. And we are really, really keen to help you along the way to change the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc. We're so much pleased with this presentation, unveiling and opening our mind on what it takes one to become an entrepreneur, walking us through the journey, talking about education. The presentation begins with vision and belief, purpose, ideas, passion, value. And I like one thing you said. You said the entrepreneurs are people who seek opportunity. They are not problem solvers. I recall vividly before we start this platform, one of the things that propelled us to set up this platform was for us to clearly look for opportunities that are there for the youth and how can they explore those opportunities. And in doing that, there are some people you mentioned in your presentation, and they were the people that we use as case study to what we did. Somebody like KFC and somebody like Steve Jobs. And when you study, when these people begin to explore the opportunities that was available to them, you will clearly see the gap at the age where Steve Jobs identified his talent and begin to pursue it, which we will say looking for opportunity, and at when KFC also identified his talent. And you realize that KFC identified his talent after he went on pension, and which was bad. So absolutely. Yes, it is super important for all of us as youth to know where we belong and the purpose for our creation. And you talk about that, you talk about purpose. And you knowing your purpose, you need to also have a belief that yes, what you are embarking on, you'll be able to do it. I believe that when the Bill Gates began his business from the garage, at that time, people might discourage him by telling him that this thing is never going to be successful. But today, it became a global business that every second, every minute, he's making money out of it. So you need to believe in yourself and you need to have that passion. The ideas should be there. You need to develop the idea. You need to grow the idea. And that is how the world will seek after you. Thank you very much for sharing this nugget with us. And I want to welcome everybody connecting with us here this evening once again. You are connecting with the David Douglas Leadership Forum, and this is our weekly leadership seminar. We had Dr. Pauline, who is a certified entreprenologist, and he is the director of International School of Entreprenology. Am I right, Doc?
Yes, entreprenology. I put the website in the chat, okay. And I would love if everybody has a read of the website and subscribes to our newsletter, because we just relaunched the university, which was 50 years old this year, but we relaunched it. So we're very proud of that. And we're very excited to stretch across the world into Ghana and to you. And hopefully we will come over to Ghana.
So if you are interested in doing your master's in entreprenology or you want to do your PhD in entreprenology, you can go to the website, or equally you can directly with Doug in that. And as she said, we will be the rep of their institute here in Ghana and Africa as well. So yes.
Are there any questions
of us who want to do our PhD in entreprenology or your master's in entreprenology? This is the session where it's not clear to you, or perhaps you want to have an addition. I will want to use this opportunity to welcome Professor PK in our midst. Prof, you warmly welcome to have you among us here. You to raise your hand and we will unmute you to go ahead. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much. To unmute yourself and ask your question. anybody with question, anybody with addition to what Doc has shared with us. This is the time you want to ask, just raise it and go ahead with your question. So this suggests to me that yes, we vividly understand or understood what Doc shared with us tonight.
Well,
Anybody with question?
Oh, there's a question from Gordon.
Yes, I can also see. Yeah, Gordon raised his hand. Gordon, kindly unmute yourself and go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much, David. Doc, if the creed that you gave, the first one was you not being uncommon. And if you look at the principles too, there is a one about common sense. So how do you become uncommon and still apply common sense?
So I didn't quite understand the question. You were talking about the creed. The creed is about the inspiration for you to engage with us. In terms of applying for what we do, it's basically the application is about your life and what you've done to date. So the criteria is that you have achieved an amount of a success and you want to enter the program in order to clarify that and take the full doctorate. So the creed was, like the first one of the creed was
I think
I want to be uncommon. You may not agree with that one. It may be some of the others. You don't have to agree with them all, but they are inspirational suggestions.
All right.
Does that make sense?
I believe. Go ahead, Doc.
Doc, what I was trying to ask is, so if I believe in the creed, the first one, that I don't want to be common, I want to be uncommon.
Yeah.
When I want to combine that with the principles you shared earlier on, one of them is to use common sense. Yes. So I was asking, how do you combine being uncommon and at the same time you use common sense? How do you combine the two?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think they are attached to different things. So wanting to be uncommon is to be individualistic. So it's slightly different to the idea of common sense. And I can see that a friend of mine from England, Stacey Baker, is here. She just made a comment. So uncommon and common sense, you see an opportunity which is right there in front of you, common sense, but nobody has taken the opportunity, hence it's uncommon. So the idea of uncommon is just something different to what is around. So it's use of the word in two different places, which is slightly confusing, but thank you, Stacey, for making that clarity. Does that help, Gordon?
Oh, yes, it helps. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc, and thank you very much, Gordon. It's a pleasure to see you connecting with us here. We have a question coming from Mr. Foster, and Foster is saying, but before we take the question from Mr. Foster, there is a contribution from Stacy. Stacy is saying that uncommon and common sense, you see an opportunity which is right there and in front of you. Common sense, but nobody has taken up the opportunity, hence it is uncommon. That is deep, and we need to put critical thinking into that to be able to deduce it. However, there is, yes, Doc, you want to add something to that?
No, I was looking at the question from Foster. Do you have any scholarship programs?
Right.
And the answer is yes, we do. We take those individually. So when you look at the application form is a basic debrief of what you've done in your life. and that helps us to understand whether you're ready for the PhD. And then we can discuss scholarships with that. We do that on a one-to-one basis. We have definitely had scholarships with our students in Malaysia. As we understand, there are different economic values and systems around the world. But what we're very keen is to understand what you've done in your life in order to know the application is ready to go you to the next level. So if you take a look on the website, you'll find there's an application page. But the other thing I want to just mention is there is also, we've set up a referral application. So once you do your PhD, you can also refer others and gain a commission. This is how we see it's an entrepreneurial way of spreading this amazing university. So for instance, our PhD is actually $15,000 US dollars. But if you refer 10 other people, you will actually get your PhD paid for because the commission is 10% of each referral that completes the program. So there are different ways to do this. There's scholarship, there's working with us, and there's special cases always. Our mission is to be uncommon, is to be different to other universities and to spread the energy of entrepreneurs to teach other entrepreneurs their gifts. Thank you, Foster. I hope I answered your question okay. Thanks. And it's great to see.
Yes, I believe that has gone to, yes, that has gone to answer his question. Before we proceed, I want to acknowledge the presence of a friend all the way from South Africa. I think he's now in Netherlands, yes. Mr. Betty. Betty is connecting with us here all the way from Netherlands. Thank you very much for being here with